Happy Hammer Week and happy Monday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Hope you guys are ready for a very fun week. Hammer Week is here and we're all here for it. We're going to go through some of the stuff we've heard recently as we count down to the beginning of the Infractions Committee meeting with Michigan. This is going to be incredible. A full week of Hammer Week. So you guys better buckle up because it's about to be Michigan City, baby. And we'll get some camp coverage in there too as well. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys growing this channel, far and away the biggest Ohio State YouTube channel at this point. We appreciate all of your correspondence, the comments. You guys are in the chat every night. We appreciate you guys. It's just such a fun thing to do. Great getting to know you guys. A quick plug: Andy Joe Taylor is going to be at Quaker Steak and Lube, right by Players Parkway in Columbus on Wednesday. Her and her family are humongous Scoop friends. So if you guys can get out there, she starts at like 5:30. It's bike night there, so it'll be pretty lit. So make sure you guys go out and support our girl Andy Joe and her family. They are the best, and they've come to most of our Scoop outings when they haven't had a conflict. So make sure you get out there and support her. If you guys want to support us, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. That's a huge way to do that. And make sure you click like, subscribe to this channel. Also click that alert bell. So with that being said, wow, Nevada, it's here. Hammer Week is rolling along into Friday, and it's been an incredible year and a half journey of stupidity by Michigan, by Ward Manuel, by Santo Ono, Yoko Ono, Jim Harbaugh, Connor Science, the list of clowns, and the people that have apologized for them. It's almost stupefying at this point. But where do you want to start on this luxurious and wonderful Hammer Week?
Well, for me, I want to start kind of in the beginning, and then we got to circle back with what we're hearing. But do you remember what the first time you heard about this? Like, what was the first time you heard about something was going on, and what do you remember when this whole
I
crazy journey started?
I remember there was something on our board. Somebody said that something really bad was coming from Michigan. Couldn't specify what, just because of anonymity, protecting a source or whatever. But I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. And then, Cheeseburger Gate. I know the people that were involved in Cheeseburger Gate. I know who was there eating the cheeseburger and drinking the milk. Or was watching Jim Harbaugh eat a cheeseburger and drink the milk. I know exactly how that all went down. So from there, bouncing into the sign stealing scandal. God, it feels like it's been 2 years because it almost has been. It's almost been 18 months. And, we started getting these videos and we'd break this film down. And then we get Spiro on here and he breaks the Connor signs on the sideline of an opponent's sideline. And there's all these things. But it was, I remember like on Buckeye Scoop, like when there's something going down, if we don't have it, then we have eyes everywhere. And people love to post the latest, greatest scoopage on our board because we have eyes all over Ohio State, and so they love to give us little tidbits. And that was a pretty good one. Well, Nevada.
Well, for me, it was funny because it was a Tennessee fan. It was a Tennessee fan, and I want to say it was like 6 months before any of this had ever broken. A guy that I know that's got Tennessee season tickets had brought me. I've been down to a couple of Tennessee games with him, and actually run on this little boat. You run like there they tailgate. You have a boat and it goes up. You have the little tailgate out on the water, and it kind of pulls up to the dock, and you kind of go off there. It's kind of like Washington, from that regard. So, which is kind of a really cool thing to do. But he told me that there was some message on a board about a guy from Tennessee, some person who was paid to record the signals for Michigan, and I didn't have any idea what he was talking about. I was like, I remember thinking, what is this guy talking about? And he goes, no, but this is a story that's kind of going on these Tennessee boards right now. He goes, but I reached out to the guy who wrote the story on there, and he goes, and he's super credible. He goes, I really suggest you look into this. And to be honest with you, I kind of blew the whole thing off because the story was so outrageous and so crazy and so patently illegal that I just couldn't believe that anybody would really be involved in it. I thought maybe it was like a gimmick or maybe some, TikTok people were doing. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that this was a Michigan sanctioned, Michigan financed, Michigan organized activity to advance scout teams, even teams in other conferences as potential opponents for them down the road. So it was a crazy story, but it always stayed with me because when you've been doing this as long as we've been doing this, and you know this all the time, we'll get stuff sent to us, and you and I will both kind of go, does this have the ring of truth? Does this ring true to you? And when you've been doing it as long as we are, we can smell the stuff. Like we've had provocateurs send us stuff that you and I both knew immediately was false. We knew it was like fake. And we just, you got to laugh at it. And you're just like, oh God, you guys aren't as clever as you think you are. But then occasionally you get sent something and you're like, man, yeah, this is legit. And that felt legit, but I just couldn't really wrap my mind around it. So when the thing started to break, my first thought was my friend in Tennessee, and I called him, and he's like, "Dude, I told you about this 6 months ago. Where have you been on this?" So yeah, kind of a crazy story, and at the time, you never think. All these different disparate things. The cheeseburger gate thing, the sign stealing thing, the Matt Weiss computer crimes thing, which really kind of came in like a flame, and then kind of went away because there was that active investigation going on because that was like all the rage for about 30 days, and then Matt Weiss kind of disappeared. Michigan didn't say anything about it, which really, from their standpoint, was really kind of a clever strategy to not say anything about it. They're hoping this thing kind of goes off like dust in the wind, and they make a choice, a conscious choice, not to notify people that they were potentially hacked, as part of their overall PR strategy, their overall legal defense. And you see all these things kind of coming back to to bite them. Their defiance, the Yoko Ono bet stuff, the Harbaugh threatening to sue, the Partridge destruction or the obstruction of justice, the Sharon Moore destruction of evidence, the Harbaugh refusing to sit down for an interview, refusing to turn over files, lying to the NCAA. I mean, there's just been so many different structures to this that but for me it all started with that one email. That one email where the guy's like, "Hey, you really should look into this because there's something going on where Michigan is paying kids to come and record the signals." And who knew that this would grow into the biggest scandal in the history of college sports, and it was playing out right before our eyes.
Yeah, I I remember because you gotta understand, like when we're Nevada and we break more stories than every other site combined, other than ones that are fed to guys by Jerry Emig. It's a thing where um we get a lot of stuff and we got to go through it. We got to vet it. Some of it is really juicy. Some of it is stuff that we frankly just can't go with because it's just not a good look or it's just not good for the program. Um, but this was a real interesting one, and we started digging, and I mean, like one of the guys is on the who's running the show during this, and I know right where he lives, and talked to him, and he said, "quote It is going to be a shit show." And I don't mean to swear, but that was his quote. So it's going to be this. He said that this thing's going to be nuts. So again, and that wasn't. I didn't ask for that. I was told that, and it's from an incredible source. So this thing, and again, the people at Michigan who are insane, the people that support Michigan, the people that are in love with Michigan, the people that work, the beat writers for Michigan, and all their morons on Twitter that attack me, even though I haven't tweeted in multiple years at this point. Uh, they they um they just can't believe that their virtuous, distinguished program would be the most corrupt program in the history of sports. I mean, like Jim Harbaugh, it all starts at the top, man. When your leader is just willfully breaking rules and breaking stupid rules, like meeting with a player for breakfast during COVID. Again, guys that did that got electrocuted. Like Arizona State was doing that. Michigan was doing that. And to me, I was just like, how desperate do you have to be to have kids on campus during COVID? And again, I'm not worried about COVID because I just thought that that was the flu, which we all get anyways. I'm talking about the fact that when you know it's like this dark period where you're not allowed to have anybody on campus and you're still having me on campus, it just takes one kid to tell one recruiting analyst or one coach or one, oh, hey, hey, coach, can I come visit your campus? No, you can't. It's COVID. Well, that's funny. I went and visited Michigan last week. I just thought it was, I mean, again, the level of desperation was insane. Because if I had one of those jobs and and it was like, hey, we might be losing it. Well, it's an easy way to guarantee that you're going to lose the job is to break a rule like that, where you got to rely on a lot of these kids aren't very smart. They're high school kids, not well educated, not really hip to the game, and they'll slip up. And as soon as that happens, it's over. So they so happen to have a kid at breakfast who's a great kid, and his family's a great family. And they, when they got interviewed, they said, yeah, it was really weird. He met us at 7 a.m. at the the brew kettle or the Mesa Blue Cat, whatever it is, whatever the little breakfast spot is. It's like one of the institutions on campus at Michigan. And it was really weird because, we couldn't forget the fact that he had a cheeseburger and milk at 7 in the morning, which again, I love cheeseburgers and I love milk, but I've never eaten a cheeseburger for breakfast in my entire life. And I've eaten probably a million of them. And, I mean, the milk, I get it, but with a cheeseburger, weird, very weird. So you start the snowball there of desperation. And then Junior Jet Genius Connor Science shows up and says, you guys have been the chicken and the egg or the cat and the mouse or cat in the hat or whatever. And that's why Ohio State is so good now, is because they pick your signs and they call their play after they know your defense. And that's why every time, Don Brown was in man, they're running mesh rail. And every time that they're in zone, they're running zone beaters. It's just magic. And it's, again, that one corner was so bad. It didn't matter if Paris Campbell told them to play, they were still going to get scorched because they just couldn't run with us. But this guy shows up again. He starts this little sign stealing thing. He gets his little group of stringers. He gets his people out filming signals. He's buying tickets again, 25, 30 years ago when there were paper tickets and maybe you could pull this off a little easier. But when you're like using your own account and your credit card and you're transferring the tickets and there's this enormous electronic paper trail that I'm sure the NCAA has gotten all of, and I'm sure they've talked to these stringers that were sent the tickets, sent the money, who paid for all of this. Again, I know Connor Science is some sort of financial genius because he sleeps 25 guys in his house and doesn't pay rent and sleeps in his car and everything else. But like, that's still a lot of money for tickets when you're making 50 grand a year. And again, I looked up what a Navy lieutenant or captain or whatever it was makes in. It ain't enough to afford this scheme. So you better call your Michigan donors so that you can cover these tickets. Because again, I've got Google too, and I'm way smarter than that guy was. But most people aren't, and people could buy it, but I didn't. So, again, the fact that they're facing all of these level 1 violations, the fact that they're repeat offenders, the fact that they've either lied to the NCAA or they've not cooperated with the NCAA. I mean, I don't know what else you can do. I mean, at this point, this is like watching your house burn and you go to the gas station and fill your truck up with gas and you just drive it right into the middle of the thing and hope that it puts the fire out. Or you go buy like a tanker truck full of, like gas, like in Terminator 2, and you drive it into the middle of the house and hope that it extinguishes. That's how these guys act. Again, I would fire everyone. Ward Manuel, Sharon Moore, the president's already trying to get out of there and skate. But you got to clean everything from the top down. Because again, the president, people say, oh, well, he's not popular with the academia side and some of his policies, but he was championing this and rooting this, and he was all in. He like jumped on the Titanic as it was going down, which I thought was crazy. Because a lot of times when there is something sketchy going on, like again, I lived through the Trussell scandal, people back away from it and they don't publicly acknowledge it. And again, from a PR side, it's tough when there's all of these things. And, if you've got ethics, then you probably understand that Jim Tressel is a much different guy than Jim Harbaugh. But some people are spineless and they don't want to support it. Like Jim Harbaugh, like he was just so desperate to get back to the NFL. He would do anything to have any sort of halfway decent season, to get back to the league, leave Michigan in a seeming pile of trash, and go on his merry way. So, but yeah, Nevada, I just, like I said, the thing that's been amazing to me is how, people think that you can just you can commit violations and then commit more violations as a repeat offender. And they're level one. These are huge violations. Level one's the highest tier violation you get. These are felony charges. And then you can lie to the NCAA. You can delete text messages. You can send one of your active coaches to Michigan or to Central Michigan sideline when they're at Michigan State, and people think that they're just going to skate on everything. And again, I know people are dumb, but this is set like a new record, in terms of the barometer, in terms of stupidity, when people actually think that they're just going to skate on all that. And again, I thought that with NIL and everything, like, the days of the bag men and, what would have been a lot of heavy penalties from, paying kids and getting caught in recruiting violations would be it. But this takes the cake over everything. That, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you look at the immediate. I mean, Michigan recruiting has completely stopped. I mean, Michigan recruiting. I mean, it is completely. If the ship has already hit the rocks. The NIL donors have all fleeing, and you see it by the recruiting. The recruiting right now is an abject disaster. They've got a head coach who's probably never going to coach another game anywhere, let alone at Michigan. The donors have all pulled away. They landed their one big player in terms of Underwood, where they threw the bag at a kid from Michigan and promised him the starting spot, and which is going to be just so much fun to watch him fail, because he will fail. And you're being in that situation where the freshman quarterback being forced to be kind of go out there and be the savior of the program. Good luck with that. That is going to be nonstop comedy this entire year. Bet the ranch on Oklahoma in week 2. That game will go under. It'll be like 24-3 or something like that. And the Underwood will get intercepted 4 times, fumble twice, and get sacked like 19 times in the game. So yeah, I think for Michigan, they're already feeling the impact, and this is before the NCAA's even getting to them. This is before people are really getting a chance to see the notice of allegation still hasn't been leaked. The NCAA has been stalwart in terms of not leaking that. Michigan leaked selective things, and the selective things were so bad that they stopped leaking. And if you imagine that, if that's the good stuff, what's the bad stuff say? And we know the genesis of the whole thing. I mean, Harbaugh said it. I mean, Harbaugh, who's made a career on, always do, it's binary, always do the right thing or don't do the right thing. There's no in between and there's no ambiguity. He came out and said, we're going to beat Ohio State or die trying. Anything was on the table in terms of beating Ohio State. It was okay for them to be in a situation where they lied, they cheated, they steal, they told the recruiting coordinator, get kids on the camp, no matter how reckless that was. That was a direction from Harbaugh. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't an oversight. That was a strategy. That was like, I don't care whatever it was. The message he sent to everybody in that organization up and down was, you do whatever you have to do. It doesn't matter. We're going to do it. If is it reckless? Is it going to get us in trouble with the NCAA? We don't care. We'll do it. And that's how you end up with a Michigan staffer on the sidelines at the Central Michigan State game, dressed in disguise. And I'll never believe that was the first and only time that Connor Stalions ever did that. I would bet everything that I own that he's done that multiple times before. And whenever somebody gets caught, it's never the first time. I'm sure he'd done it. He was maybe not with the super spy glasses with the recording device on him, which is just that's just so funny that I just can't get past that. But no, I mean, it all came from Harbaugh. Harbaugh, it was a Harbaugh's direction. This was a Harbaugh joint the whole way. And now, what Michigan's going to try to do, Michigan's going to try to say, hey, Harbaugh's gone. He was the bad actor. Stallions is gone. He was the lone wolf. We're just kind of innocent dupes in this whole thing. Don't punish these poor kids. Don't overreach. And when they do get the hammer, which they are 100% going to get, they'll cry that the NCAA is making an example out of them. Nobody could have seen this coming. None of this was discussed. How in the world did this come down? Because none of this was discussed with Michigan before, and it's all a lie. Everything that the beat writers have been telling has been a lie since day one on this whole thing. I mean, you have Michigan beat writers out there saying, we're not even sure there's going to be a notice of allegations. They may just dismiss the whole thing and apologize to Michigan. You guys are going to court in 5 days on a thing that you were saying was going to be completely dismissed, that there was nothing there. You're going to, so few of these NCAA investigations end up at this point. I mean, it's probably less than 1% of them, and you're going to it. And that's a problem. That's a problem for you. That's a problem for Michigan. And you think things are bad with recruiting. You think things are bad with your staff. You think things are bad with your current roster. Now you haven't seen anything yet until the NCAA gets done with it, and you're facing down postseason bans and vacated wins, because that's when it really gets serious. And you guys can start screaming overreach then, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think, or don't think. I know as they get into this and these details are revealed that haven't been, we haven't been privy to. Again, like you kind of saw a look inside of how the NC is and how people at Michigan are reacting when you watch that, that abortion of a documentary that was Connor Steins' documentary, and you see him being asked by the NCAA compliance people that are running the case, is this you on the sideline? And you have a guy like Connor Steins who's so stupid. He says, well, I don't know if that's me. I mean, I don't know. I've been to a lot of football games and I can't really tell. And so, again, like if you want to get cute, that's fine, but that's not going to help you when it comes down to punishing these guys that you've just, not only have you broken major level 1 violations, but the way they've acted has been insane. And like I said, like Ward Manuel having a job at this point is almost criminal. When you look at their 2 top programs and the mess that basketball was with Juwan Howard, and they fixed it with Dusty May, which was a great hire, as a hire Ohio State should have made. And then you also throw in the fact that you've got, the football program is just like, I mean, it's about to hit the iceberg, man. I'm telling you, when you've got a freshman quarterback as your savior, and you're not going to have much around him, and the recruiting is melting, and you've got this transfer portal that's going to be wide open and at the end of the year, man, it's going to be insane. And I think that the fact that they didn't move and just bullet this season, the team's going to stink this year. Let's just get straight. Take the bowl ban this year, move on Sharon Moore, make Wink Martindale the interim head coach for a year, then get him out of there, pay him his last year, and start from scratch. I don't know why you wouldn't just get it rolling, because that's the thing that it's going to happen. You're getting later into the season, but the fact that they've stuck it out with Sharon is almost insane at this point, given, he was a repeat offender. He deletes text messages. And again, he was in on all of this. Like, that's the thing I keep telling you guys. I'm like, look, I've worked in the Woody Hayes. I've worked in the football building. I know what coaches would know and what they wouldn't know. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. When you're the head coach, you're responsible for every single person in that building. And they all roll up to you, and that's something that that's why Jim Harbaugh got out of there, because he didn't want the stuff roll up to him. So he got on out of here and got his multiple year show cause and 1 year suspension and everything else, and went to the NFL. But Sharon didn't have anywhere to go, and again, that's why I kept saying, that's why all these guys are getting out of here. When the entire staff leaves, like strength coach leaves, and Jim Harbaugh, if he cared about Michigan, which he doesn't, he would have said, "Hey guys, stay and let's keep the thing together." And he'd have done the Urban Meyer, where Urban retired and Mark Pantoni stayed and Mickey Marotti stayed, and about half the staff stayed, and then Ryan Day fired the other half and got some of his own guys in there, which is fine. He's allowed to do that as a head coach, but it's something that with Michigan they just all ran. So it's been amusing, because the tea leaves they just haven't been hard to read. I mean, like if you work at a company, and a lot of you guys work at companies or you've got your jobs or whatever, and you see all of the top people leave, you need to ask why, and then you need to ask, should I be getting out of here because something bad's about to happen? Because I've lived that. I've lived that in big companies I've worked for. And it's been, when I see a bunch of guys get fired or a bunch of guys move, I'm like, yeah, this ain't good. Something ain't smelling right. I better get on the move. So Nevada recruiting weekend was a biggie. Obviously, Felix Ojo, great job by the Buckeye boys, by Mello and Devin, having Felix Ojo on. Any new gleanings? I mean, Felix Ojo, I think, is squarely in play, but I think he is a little gamey. But he, it's going to be expensive. But anything else that you're thinking after this first weekend?
I'm ready to go to recruiting, but I want to circle back on one thing. I want to ask you just one question. You're a guy who was a player, coach, and I mean you have a unique skill set, a unique perspective on everything that goes on a sideline, goes on in the admin. What percentage chance was it that the head coach at Michigan was not aware that there was a sign stealing activity going on inside his building that involved his staff, his interns, and other adjacent people, boosters, coordinators, and full-time staff member who had the chair of cheer right next to the offensive and defensive coordinators during game? What are the chances that he didn't know what was going on?
Well, here's another big one that you left out: the players. Don't forget the
Yeah.
players, because you said there was support staff and everyone else, but like again, I mean, I'll fire up the video again when these guys are all pointing at the sky and pointing at the ground and screaming out the stuff. The players were in on it, you know. So again, you could be as dense and dumb as Michigan people are, because they are dumb. People that support Michigan are impossibly dumb. Like I call them, it's the smooth brain army at this point. You know, I literally was Connor Signs. I was low level guy, working hard, working 80 hours a week, working Saturdays and Sundays and grinding. Because Urban Meyer's first year was unlike anything in the history of the program in terms of how much we worked. It was insane. Now it's a cup of coffee at lunch and go eat at the buffet, and it's a different world now. And again, it's been like that since Ryan took over, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and they do a great job. And the program's never been at a higher level than it is right now, and I commend Ryan Day on that. But that first year was crazy, and Urban knew everything that went on. He knew everything. You know, like I had like 2 nights a week, I would have to go to class at night, because we didn't have online classes like they do now. I'm sure that none of the GAs go to class now. I'm sure they're all, in class, and there's probably not even a reason to have GAs anymore, because you've got, the coaches can coach now. That was the big reason why you had graduate assistants like me, was because if you're a full-time graduate assistant, and I had to be enrolled in a grad school full-time, then I was allowed to coach on the field. So the GAs were really important. Now GAs don't even matter anymore, because you have 3 offensive line coaches plus a GA, so you can hire any retired or fired or on the street coach to come in and be another line coach, and he doesn't have to go to grad school like I did. So, but on I want to say it was like Tuesday and Thursday night, I would have to go to class from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. And, we practiced till 6:30. So I would tell my professors, look, I got to go, my professor, I'm like, look, I'm going to be 30 minutes late to class every class. And I apologize, but there's nothing I can do. Tuesdays is the biggest practice of the week. It runs late a lot because Urban likes to redo stuff. So I apologize. I don't know what to do. I don't have a choice. That's it. And the thing about when you're a football GA is there's no good time to schedule your class, because Monday is a full work day where you work from 6 a.m. to 11. Tuesday, 6 a.m. to 10. Wednesday, 6 to 10. Thursday, you get out at like 6, but I would go to class. So that Tuesday, like I would be gone. And so, but I told Urban and I told Tom Herman, I'm like, look, Drew Maringer, who is the tight end coach at Oregon, who is the other GA, we're the 2 offensive GAs, he is going to go to class in the morning, and I'm going to go to class at night. So you always have a GA here to do any scouting report. Because we always had stuff that we had to get done. And Drew, I'm sure, we were both working while we were in class, so we had our laptop there and stuff. But that being said, Urban Meyer knew where I was at every minute of my entire year when I was in that building. Like, I was never not accounted for. I was never rogue. If I was doing something, he knew it. And again, I've told you guys, like, I picked Michigan signals. I picked Illinois signals. I did it with binoculars and a piece of paper, and they had one signaler, so it wasn't exactly brain surgery. And I'd get him by the middle of the first quarter and second quarter, and I have it nailed. And he knew that, and we'd call some plays off of it. Not everyone, but a lot of them. And it worked, and it was really effective. And again, I didn't. Now this is why I have a different type of awareness of what Connor was doing. He was doing it down on the field, and as when he was the one, it was much more sophisticated, 4 or 5 signalers, I'm sure by then, and holding up boards and changing signalers and wristbands and everything else in the world. So he felt the pressure to go and make sure that he was as accurate as humanly possible. So that's why he goes and hires a stringer, and he gets 7 games of Ohio State tape so that he can go through the signals and figure out, okay, Keenan Bailey's been the live signaler for 5 of the 7 games, and he wears a green shirt or a blue shirt or a yellow shirt or whatever color shirt. And he's the ginger dude who stands there with a visor on or whatever, so he had to really dial it in and make it as accurate as possible. So again, when you're doing something like this and your defensive coordinator and your offensive coordinator are both relying on his expertise at picking these signs, he's got to, really dial it in. And again, the thing I said is when somebody does something good inside of a football building, especially when you're a low level slug, slappy, we call it like slappy, again, you guys have that short for, you'll do whatever. If someone does something amazing, if someone, does something and they do some amazing scouting report or some amazing film breakdown or some amazing presentation or some amazing cut up or some way that they taught a player to do something, like, and Urban sees it, then all of a sudden you're like the made man, and I was the made man. When I got Orlando Pace to come to Friday Night Lights, man, he didn't mess with me again for the rest of my career there. For the next 7 months, when I got Orlando, no one had his cell phone number, nobody knew how to contact him, I got him to Friday Night Lights, and I was a made man. Urban never messed with me again. So again, you're always looking for a way to get favoritism for the head coach. And again, if you're Jim Harbaugh and you've got a $50,000 a year guy talking to your $2 million defensive coordinator and your $1.5 million offensive coordinator in between every play, and he's walking right next to him, eventually you're going to say, who is this guy? What is he doing here? And how is he getting to be so accurate at this? Take me through this. And again, because again, those coaches, that aren't named Jim Harbaugh, that are position coaches and they're making, substantial money, they want to keep their jobs and they got to make sure that this kid is legit and he's accurate. And, again, if I'm the defensive coordinator and this kid says, hey, I can pick every sign with 99% accuracy, I'm going to say, okay, take me through your process. Because again, I'm risking my career on your accuracy. If I'm going to do this, again, it's like cheating in a casino or something of that ilk. I got to make sure that you're right and that you're accurate. So, eventually, you're never going to see a low-level staffer. If Brian Hartline's calling the plays down on the field, he's not going to have some intern running around next to him talking to him before and after every single play. Like Connor Stallions was talking to these guys. Like he's talking to Sharon Moore and talking to Mike McDonald and, Jesse Minter and these idiots that were, using this stuff. So, again, like that's just not how it works, man. I'm telling you, when you're a coach like Jim Harbaugh, who's making $8 million a year and you're the savior, and the thing about Jim Harbaugh and Urban is they have a ton of similarities. They're both football is everything in life. Nothing else matters. Ultra competitive. The difference was Urban was great right out of the jump, and Harbaugh started off hot and then he just fizzled and died. And Urban never died. Urban just turned over a strong program. So, but the desperation of Jim Harbaugh to get back to the point where he could take an NFL job. Because again, when you keep losing in college, like, none of these NFL owners are going to want to hire you and get the fan base excited. But when you win the national title by cheating, then magically you're one of the hottest commodities on the free agent market, for the coaching. And magically, as soon as he got that golden parachute, man, he jumped it and he got out of there. So, but yeah, that's the thing. I can't get over the fact that people don't realize that the entire staff was in on this, and people did the lone wolf thing. And I'm like, dude, when you're at a place like Michigan or Ohio State, like if you're at like Akron or Kent State and they don't have a big support staff, and but dude, when these guys have their families' lives on the line, because that's how I have to look at it with these coaches. Their families' lives depend upon winning and losing. And if they would have lost one more season, like after that COVID year, then they're all getting fired. And guess what? You got to tell little Charlie and little Susie, hey, say goodbye to all your friends at middle school, because we have to move to Tucson or Sheboygan or Madison, Wisconsin, or wherever, because we can't stay here because daddy got fired. And none of these guys want to get fired, man. And I know how desperate that they get. I've seen it. So, it's just something that I think was It was obvious. And I think Connor Science, deep down, being the psychopath, weird Michigan dude that he is, was like, I have to do everything I can to maximize my accuracy at picking these signs. So I'm going to send stringers out and I'm going to pay them and they're going to take video and I'm going to work 22 hours a day at Schembeckler Hall or at my house or on my hard drive, or I'm going to make this big thing of signs and I'm going to go through them and I'm going to decode them and I'm going to make flashcards. And by the time it's Saturday, it'll be like I've seen these signs 600 million times because, again, I can see what you do. You just make a cut up of every play in the game, and then right after you put the signal up, you figure out who the live signal is, and then you make a bunch of cut ups, and then you can, it would be super easy to do. It'd take a lot of time, but as you're making the cut ups, you're going to become real familiar with the signals. So, again, that's why like people are like, oh, this didn't have anything to do with it, and you saw how to stop it. And I'm like, that's, of all the dumb things I've ever heard in my entire life, you still had to stop it even though they knew the play or whatever. Like that's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like, okay, you guys are running the ball to the right, guess what, I'm gonna send the house over there. I'm gonna send the extra guy, the extra edge guy that's unblockable. I'm gonna spin the safety down over there so you have an extra hat every time. The people that say that, they just illuminate how little they know about football when they say, oh, we still have to stop it. Like, okay, you tell me what the offensive play is, I'll call up a coverage that'll stop it. Or at least it'll be, again, if I have Jeremiah Smith versus a turd, it ain't going to work. But, if if it's equal talent and I know what your play is, you're never going to beat me. Not in a million years. Nevada, any thoughts on that? We can dig into little recruiting stuff.
Well, yeah, just I mean, they were what the Michigan people would tell you is that Harbaugh knew nothing, and that Stallions gave them an explanation that they believed. But no serious person, no person like you said, a multi-million-dollar employee or experienced staff member, people that have been in the NFL, been in the college football up and down successfully, is going to believe that you've got a guy that can pick the signs from just watching, or that can pick the signs from watching the television broadcast. So that's going to be their defense. Their defense is going to be, well, he lied to. He told us he picked them off the television broadcast. But like, what serious person would believe that? If somebody told you that, Kirk, and said, "Hey, I can pick the signs because I can watch the all 22 and the TV broadcast, and they show the signs on it, and I can pick them," like, aren't you immediately calling BS on that?
Well, yeah, no, I would say, all right, come on Buckeye Scoop anytime, Connor, and show me how you do it. I just send me the film, I'll run the film, and you show me how you picked it from all 22. Because again, I have access to every all 22 game from last year, every game in all of college football, and you don't see the signalers at all, not a single signal. And then they say, oh, I use a TV copy. It's like, again, if you're dumb, and some people are, some of these guys are in compliance, they might not know the game and how it's played and realities, but do you think like Ohio State, again, like our film guy he's not like a football coach, but we tell him what to put on the tape. Urban would say, hey, don't put that motion on there, or don't put that shift, or don't put that huddle or whatever. And so, when you do that, you're not going to get the signals ever. And you can't film the signals. So again, that's just a thing where it's just a flat out lie. Nobody's going to send film. When the Big Ten's got the big database that trades all the film, they're not going to put the signals in there ever. I've never seen it before. And again, I guarantee you, I was like, okay, well, come on, show it to me. And again, if Connor Steins could prove that, he would have done it by now. He had came out and said, look, here's the Ohio State Michigan game from 2022, and here's all of their signals. Here's Keenan Bailey doing the Statue of Liberty, followed by the Macarena, and that means that it's it's mesh rail, or it's wide delay screen or whatever. But it's just literally impossible, because that's like people that say, oh, I could pick an NFL game or a college game, like, and again, anyone that doesn't believe that, next time, when we watch the Ohio State Texas game, or just go watch any of the playoff games that are on ESPN Plus or whatever, and show me a single play that you could get the signal on. Because for one, it's like I say, on a TV copy, the last thing on earth that they care about is signalers. They want to show Ryan Day, Steve Sarkisian, Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, whatever guy just made the play, the running back, like literally anything. They don't show the signalers because nobody cares. They're trying to make a compelling TV product. So they're going to show the big names that are out there and the pain or the agony or whatever's going on. So yeah, that was an amazing one because that's when I knew that Connor was like he's like the Kanye West of college football in terms of he's just completely crazy and you just can't really take anything he does with a grain of salt because that's what I knew he was Norman Bates level, Norman Bates at the end of Psycho level crazy. And it was amazing because I was like, if I didn't live in his shoes, then and I was really dumb, that might work. But when you got guys like me, I mean, come on, like you ain't got to get that past me or people with brains. And, and again, like the lone wolf and Jim Harbaugh didn't know. I'm like, dude, when you're that kind of coach and you've been around the block for coaching for 40 years or whatever it's been, he's been in the NFL and some little wizards out there telling your two coordinators who you hired what to do before every play. Eventually you're going to say, who is this guy? Why is he here? What does he do? How is he so good at it? Because that's just the nature of the beast. Because your entire program depends on the accuracy of a $50,000 a year employee telling you the signals. Because that's what it got down to. Because again, like you look at the spread when he showed up and started picking signs versus before that, insanity. And really since he left, because they sucked last year, they didn't win a road game until they played us. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, just the fact that they gave him a job. I mean, you know how hard it is to get a $50,000 a year
Oh
job. I
my
mean,
God.
as good as you were, Kirk, you never got a $50,000 a year job at Ohio State. And it's like
No.
they took this guy as an unpaid whatever, and all of a sudden they elevated and gave him an office. You didn't even have a laptop when you were working at Ohio
No,
State, and this
I
guy.
didn't until Urban showed up. I didn't have a
So,
laptop. I had to fight to the death with the other GM for the one laptop we were allotted.
I
You
mean, this
joke,
guy
man.
he has an office. He's got a $50,000 a year job. I mean, this guy was royalty, man. I mean, they liked what he was doing. So, and that didn't come from somebody else. Jesse Minter wasn't hiring him. That was coming from Harbaugh. He got a game ball from Harbaugh. Harbaugh knew what was going on. Harbaugh knew it. He endorsed it. They financed it. It was run by the institution, and that's why this thing's got to be. When the punishment comes down, it's going to be all about lack of institutional control, lack of candor, lack of cooperation. They've lauded these other schools for exemplary cooperation. They've talked about in the first cheeseburger game, they talked about the culture of non-compliance that Jim Harbaugh created. And that was all part of a narrative the NCAA is weaving to tie this one into that, to tie into a lack of institutional control case. And that's why they're going to get the harshest penalties along with their 6 level 1 uh, infractions, which is just crazy. That is a crazy number of level 1 infractions that they're facing. And like I said, Sharon Moore's done. Sharon Moore will never coach another game at Michigan. I'm telling you, you can take that to the bank. He's done.
Yeah, like in terms of all the crazy things that happened and went down, when you look at the fact that Connor Sarian said that he went to the Michigan coaches, like I think it was the spring clinic that they do like the Friday before the spring game, and met, Chris Partridge or Charlie Partridge, whatever his name is, and told him about himself. And then they said, oh yeah, we'll start work on Monday. Like, like for him to say that he met a guy on a Friday at Michigan, and then the guy said, oh yeah, come to work on Monday. Like, do you know how impossible that is if you don't know somebody or have some sort of strange skill set? Again, like he was at Navy doing this. And again, I remember how much we struggled in that Navy game, and that seemed real peculiar that magically like Navy was just dog walking on a team that ended up winning the national championship. But that just isn't how it works. If you look at, you guys can go look at the roster of the 7 million coaches that work at Ohio State right now, all the 55 offensive coaches and defensive coaches and GAs and interns and assistant O-line coaches. They're either guys that are former coaches like Charlie Dickey and Marcus Johnson at real programs like Purdue and Oklahoma State. They're former players, or they're friends and family. Like Tony Johnson, who's Larry Johnson's son, is the assistant running backs coach. Keenan Bailey got the job because Tony Alford brought him from Notre Dame. Billy Fessler, got his job through, Chip Kelly via Joe Moorhead. Again, there's this thing where there's a lot of who you know, because in coaching, the number one most important thing is who you know. It's not talent. It's not how hard you work, it's who you know. Because again, you guys have seen it over the years. Some of the guys we've hired that have been duds, or some of them have been really good. So it's not always one or the other. Very rarely is it a true out of the blue hire. Like the Jim Knowles one was pretty out of the blue. That was a guy that was running one of the best defenses in the country, and Ryan interviewed him, and away we went. But a lot of times it's a recommendation from somebody. So again, what would possess somebody to recommend Connor Stallions when he's never coached before to like a job that's that prestigious at a place like Michigan when he's that young? So again, the sign stealing thing, it was powerful and it was something that worked. But again, that's why it's illegal. Because if this wasn't illegal, then Ohio State would have kids at every game and they'd be videoing the signals and we'd be picking signs like a mofo. But it's just something that you can't do. You can't allow it. And again, the NCAA has the eyes of the entire world in terms of especially the Big Ten and the SEC. Because again, that's why there's no chance they're going to skate on this. Because this is something that all of the Big Ten is against Michigan now. All of the coaches, all of the athletic directors, the fact that they let this go on, the fact that they've made light of it, guys. And I've listened to the James Franklin press conferences, the Greg Schiano press conferences, over and over again. And Brett Bielema, I've talked on the phone to Ryan Day about it. They're not happy. So it's a different level. Like there's levels to this. And it's gonna be a blast. I can't wait for it. What else you got?
Well, you got to talk a little recruiting. We can talk a little recruiting. Big recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes coming through. We talked about Aaron Thomas, the kind of, I wouldn't say unheralded, but less heralded offensive lineman that's got a lot of push for the Ohio State. But I want to talk about a couple more players specifically on the defensive line that I think Ohio State made big inroads with. And the first is Luke Waffle, that 5-star defensive end from Jersey. We talked a little bit about him yesterday. I think people were a little bit concerned about, his brother being at Penn State, where's things, but I keep getting information today that Luke Waffle's the guy that Ohio State made a big impact on, made a big move on, and I've kind of tentatively penciled into this class. And the second one is Kari, whatever you call it, Wilder, the 4-star edge from Sarah in California. Really good player. I think Ohio State's going to get him. So ironically, I know people are concerned about Larry Johnson, and the popular consensus is Larry's lost it. Larry didn't. I've gone through the list of the guys that he got in the last recruiting cycle. Maxwell Roy, Trajan Odom, Jarquez Carter, Bo Atkinson. I mean, he had one of the great recruiting hauls of the 7 kids they brought in the last recruiting cycle. So I don't think Larry's lost it. And Wilder, if you get Wilder and Waffle, that's as good a pair as you're going to be able to find out there. And I think they could get them both. I think they could get them both. I know, generally feelings are high coming off these official visits. Everybody's excited. Everything's kind of going down. But Ohio State's setting the bar so high with these kids right now because they know how to do the recruiting. They know how to run these official visits. They've got this thing down to a science. Nobody's got a hotter brand. That we're coming off the national championship, so money's not an issue from an NIL standpoint. The facilities are right up there with anybody's, and getting going to be better. So I'm really excited about that. But specifically with those 2 defensive linemen, I think Larry Johnson's going to add a couple more pelts on the wall, and people can kind of get off his back for a little bit because I think Larry's still got some gas left in the tank.
Yeah, I just like this early in the process, man. It's just hard for me to be ultra concerned because you've got the season, you've got teams that are going to lose a lot of games, you've got kids that are going to get cold feet on their situations, and I don't know, like we've lost kids that are committed at this time of the year, and then the other thing is that half the kids that come here in this class are going to transfer portal out. They'll make no impact. So it's like to get all worked up because we don't have 4D linemen committed, but like I just look at the way I look at it right now. It's how good is our current roster. That's it. I'm not worried about next year. Not worried about 2 years down the line. I'm worried about this year. And come December, I'll worry about next year. But like this year, this is as good of an Ohio State team as we've ever had. I mean, it's the best tight end room in the history of Ohio State. It's not even close. Offensive line is deep and talented. Maybe the best receiver room we've ever had as well. We have a 5-star best quarterback in his class, guy that won the Elite 11, beat DJ Langway and all these other guys. James Peoples, I think, is going to be the breakout star of the entire Big Ten. He looks fantastic. Saw him the other day. He is filled out, and he's a kid that I just don't think people realize how good he is. And once he gets rolling, like I don't think he's as physical as Ezekiel, but he's kind of got the same temperament in terms of being a kid and being tough. And by being a kid, like, I mean, everybody loved Ezekiel, man. When he was a kid getting recruited and his family, and I still remember when he took his official visit, like, I was like, I love this kid. Now, I never got to coach him because in 2012 was his senior year when he was at, I think it was Briarcrest in St. Louis. And but I remember when he came on his visit, I mean, I was like, I love this kid. He's such a great kid, and he's so physical and he's so tough. And then he got here and he turned into, top 5 pick, and he was everything in, a bag of chips. And I don't know if James Peoples is going to go that high, but, again, he's got to learn from Trey and Quinshawn. And do I think that he could go and be a guy like that and be a 2nd-round pick and all Big Ten? Absolutely. Especially in this offense. Oh, my God. There's no doubt. And CJ Donaldson is a kid that's lost a bunch of weight, and he looks fantastic. Like, I mean, I asked him, and great chemistry, great guy for the room, super competitive. And that's a big benefit to the transfer portal is, man, when you're James Peoples and you're like, okay, I got the starting spot, and they bring in CJ Donaldson, man, you gotta sharpen, and you gotta be on point and be ready to roll. Cause like CJ Donaldson could easily be the top back on this team. Now I think James Peoples will be, and it'll be a complimentary thing, but it's kind of like last year when, there were games where Quinshawn would get off and there were games where Trey would get off, and that could easily be the scenario this year. Then you look at us defensively, and like our front four, especially with Bo Atkinson, is as good as there is in the nation. And I think that our DNs are very deep. And, as much as everyone's worried about the 5th string defensive tackles, like I played on 2 teams that went to the national championship, and like our backup D tackles played like 10 plays a game. Guys that just weren't very good. It was mostly Quinn Pickhock and David Patterson, maybe a little bit of rotational guy from the backups, but anymore, I mean, you can do sub packages. You can move Bo Atkinson inside on 3rd down. It's like I tell you, just give me 2 downs out of our starting guys, and then on 3rd down, go to the 4 DNs, because you've got guys like Logan George that got to eat. You got Bo Atkinson, you got Kenyatta, you got Caden Curry, you got a bunch of guys that you can pass rush, and you put Arvell at defensive end and Sonny. Use those guys as edge guys and blitzers, because I think that Arvell is going to be Arvell. I don't think he is going to be our key blitzer this year on sub packages, and that's going to be something that's going to be fun to watch, because people I talk to that I trust say that he's exceptional in pass rush. He's a the Micah Parsons kind of guy where you put him at D end and he's impossible to block. So again, I'm excited about that. Our corners are going to be upgraded this year. Again, I love Denzel. I think Jermaine Matthews is a better pro. He'll get drafted higher. Davison's got to get his kinks worked out. And again, when you get Devin Sanchez chasing you, these guys got to sharpen up. And they're both good players, but Devin Sanchez is going to be a 1st rounder. And then you got Caleb in the back. So again, I love the makeup of this team. I know everybody because the thing I do know about Ohio State fans is I wish they'd just listen to me and say, look, this team is going to be really good. Ryan Day, and again, if people are worried about the quarterback, well, I'm like, we have the best quarterback coach in the entire world at any level of football right now with Ryan. And Ryan is not going to he's not going to accept average quarterback play. I promise you. So Julian Sayin is going to be really, really good. And Ryan's had that measure. And you look at, I mean, he had 3 quarterbacks get drafted that he recruited in one draft. I know they went late, but still, that's incredible. Not to mention CJ Stroud's about to get a huge extension. Justin Fields is a starter for the Jets. So again, I trust Ryan with quarterbacks implicitly. And like I said, if I was an NFL owner, he'd be my first phone call, because I want a quarterback developer as my head coach. Because if you have a quarterback and he's good, then you got a great chance to win. And I think with Julian and the talent around us, it's going to be an incredible year. And again, when we win and we do good and we got the highest APR, like, I feel bad for recruits that don't pick Ohio State at this point. I feel bad for kids that are, parlayed or auctioned off by their parents or whatever it is, because you got a school that had the perfect APR. They won the national championship. Coach has got a 7-year extension, got an energetic young staff, and you have the most talented roster in college football. So I don't know why you won't want to be a part of this. And we just had 15 guys get drafted, which again, we don't really press release that like we probably should, but that was pretty good. So Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? Because and again, I know that there's always a whipping boy. That's the one thing you can always count on. We'll always have a whipping boy, and it's Larry Johnson, and it's recruiting. And how are we ever going to survive without 17 defensive tackles? But I don't know. At this time last year, everybody thought I heard from people like our offensive line is going to suck. I hope they don't ruin JJ and Emeka and all these skill guys and Will Howard and is the line going to be able to block anybody? And guess who stepped up more than anybody? The offensive line. That was the greatest season of all time for an Ohio State offensive line, because you lose a first rounder and a Remington guy, and then you play better somehow because we were so deep. Like that's never happened ever. So again, I think that the D line has a chance to write a similar type of story. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree. I think this team's going to be. It's a younger team. We lost a heck of a lot of experience from last year, but that's what's going to make it fun. And you listen to Will Howard, and you talked about the biggest evolution for Will Howard was realizing that sometimes it's just easier to take the safe throw. He didn't have to make the hero throw like he did at Kansas State. Just take the safe play, check it down, do whatever you have to do, keep the ball out of harm's way, and he did a heck of a job doing that. And I think Julian Saints is getting the benefit of that from day one. Julian Saints, a 5-star Elite 11 winner quarterback, number one quarterback in the country. So you're talking about, I mean, this isn't like Ryan Day's taking a piece of, unmolded clay. This is, quality work that he's got here. And he's got a chance to have watched Will Howard operate. He's watched, been coached by Ryan Day, been coached by Chip Kelly, and now he's going to get a chance to do his thing. We're only going to go as far as Julian Saint takes us, but I think Julian can take us a long way. We just got to get through Texas and take it from there.
Well, I mean, the Julian Saint thing is comical to me at this point, because he has so much talent around him that all he's gonna have to do is take the safe throws. I mean, he has the best tight end, the best route running tight end I think we've ever had, Max Clare. I mean, he's that good. He's preseason All-American. All the good publications have him as the number one tight end in the country, and then the other ones have him as number two. So I mean, we haven't had a guy rated that high in a long time. And again, I know that we've had some big time guys, but I don't think they've been as good as this kid. Dominated the Penn State. I've watched that Penn State tape 10 times when he played at Purdue and was the best player on the field, other than Abdul Carter. And he blocked him. He blocked him, 9 catches, 120 yards, touchdown, versus a really good Penn State defense. He ate him alive. So, I think that Julian's saying the team will go as he goes, but I think that he's ready for it. I mean, this is the last quarterback Nick Saban recruited and got the commitment for, and this kid isn't scared. He flew from California to Tuscaloosa to take that job. And then when it went south with Saban, he packs his bags and comes to Columbus. So this guy isn't scared of greatness. And he won the Elite 11 versus guys that have already started, like DJ Langway. And again, like you said, and that's what I always tell guys. I'm like, look, we bet on like Secretariat around here. We bet on the well-bred, smart, 5-star. Like, it's not like we're trying to make it out of, some guy that was unrecruited, some walk-on. We've been on a 5-star guy that won the Elite 11 to be a good quarterback at Ohio State, because he doesn't have to be great. He's got to be good. Don't turn it over. Throw it to Max Clare. Throw it to JJ. Hand it to James Peoples, Innis, and hit Carnell a little bit down the seam, and you're going to be fine. And then our defense, like I said, I think our defense with Matt Patricia is going to be nasty. I think that Texas has no idea what they're getting ready for. When you've got some of these coaches, and oh God, who does Carolina open with? Whoever Carolina opens with, it's so funny because, let me see, football schedule. Their coach was making such a great TCU. So they open with TCU. So they interviewed their coach, and he talked to the athletic director about, he's like, hey, can we stop opening with like these good schools? And because this is what TCU has to deal with. So, obviously Bill Belichick is the head coach at Carolina. So TCU has to watch film of the New England Patriots, which Belichick ran the defense, and the Washington Huskies, because that's where his son, Steve Belichick, was the defensive coordinator for Jed Fish last year. And then you have to kind of like cross-pollinate that with any other guys that have been in college coaching. So that's what Texas has to do right now with Matt Patricia. They're not watching our game with generals, and they might watch some of it for the safety structures. But in terms of the fronts and the potential pressures and blitzes, they've got to watch what Matt Patricia did with the Patriots 2 years ago and study that, because that's what they're going to be seeing. I think our back end will be pretty similar structure wise, but I think our front end is going to be very, very multiple. Again, it's a lot of the stuff that Matt Patricia and Brian Flores like to bring all kinds of crazy pressures. And it's really hard to go against. Again, there's NFL film clips of guys talking to Brian Flores and saying how hard it is to get ready for his defense. And Brian Flores learned under Matt Patricia was the DC, and Brian Flores was one of his coaches, secondary coach. And then he went on to go to the to be a DC, be a head coach for a year at the Dolphins. But I think that's going to be really tough to get ready for if you're Texas. Now I got a couple super chats. I'm getting Nevada back in here. All right, let me get a couple super chats knocked out. Appreciate you guys as always. Michael Jerry, thanks for the 10. Don't want to be negative, but in the ability watching the crazies from Scum, the sounds or others don't go loco and do bad things. In my gut, I have a bad feeling something might happen. Nevada OH, I hope not. But is the ability watching the crazies from Scum that sounds or others don't go loco and do bad things? I don't know. Like to me, I'm just trying to decipher this. Nevada, I'm going to read this one more time. Don't want to be negative, but is the ability watching the crazies from Scum that stallions or others don't go loco or do bad things? Exclamation point. In my gut, I have a bad feeling something might happen. Nevada OH, and he says I hope not. So I think he's saying that he's hoping that they don't skate, which is something that people have said.
I think he's saying that he thinks they're going to lose their mind when this thing hits, and there's going to be like civil unrest or something like that, or mass casualty event. Cats and dogs living together, that kind of stuff. Because those people have been so brainwashed to think that nothing bad's going to happen, and when this thing slaps them in the face, I think it's going to be difficult for them to handle that. That's how I took it, but I could be completely wrong.
No, I mean you're probably right. Like I said, I think that they've been fed a lot of lies, and it's been tough because their beat is so in the bag. I mean, they just like actively whatever they put out, they're running with. And again, Spiro's video. If you guys haven't watched Justin Spiro's video that's on our YouTube channel, make sure you watch it because it's amazing. Some of the clips he has of what their beat writers were saying about how this is the NCAA and they're worthless and they didn't, they don't have anything, and this is just them trying to remain relevant and everything else. And I'm just like, guys, that's not what this is about. This is about the fact that you guys just, performed the largest cheating scandal in the history of college football. Like, again, I've talked to Coach, Ryan and some of these guys, and they're furious about what these guys were doing. Because again, they had to face the brunt of the fan base going crazy. And, like you guys all know what Ryan Day went through when we lost those games. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. It was cruel, but that's just, what it is. I mean, we have, insane folks that, do this stuff, and it's tough sometimes. But I think that, these guys are about to be in for a very, very rude awakening. All right, Nevada, we've got Nick Ma. He says, thanks for the 5. He says, Julian Sand is actually having to earn it against Texas, and teaching moments is a really good thing. Yeah, I don't think it's ever a bad thing to play in a game like Texas. Again, I wish that maybe he had one start in before, but I don't think it's going to hurt him at all. I think that he's talented enough, and he's been around big game environments. Like, that was kind of the nice part about him being on the team for this title run and being around Will Howard is he's seen what pressure looks like. He hasn't had to operate in it, but he's played in big games in Southern California. And like I said, he doesn't have to be some sort of a earth-shattering whatever. And he's going to be going against Arch Manning, and Arch, as good as he is, like, he's only started a handful of games. It's not like Arch has 45 starts coming into this game, so he's going to be nervous. And I don't know, last time Arch's team saw the Buckeyes, they lost. So, we've got that edge. And again, we've got a really new team right now, so I don't think there's going to be any complacency. Not to mention, like, I just think Matt Patricia is going to be a game breaker that night. I'm really excited to see his fronts. Nevada, your thoughts? Julian Sand actually having to earn it against Texas and have teaching moments is a really good thing. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, you slipped and said that night. It's not gonna be night. It's your favorite, that sleepy big noon game. So you're gonna have the jammies all pulled out there for sleepy big noon. So that'll be good. To your point about Arch Manning, it's a great one. Arch Manning. It's not like he's played a ton of big games, and when he played Ohio State last game, he got knocked out. He got knocked out of the game by Ohio State. So it's not like he had some 7 touchdown virtuoso performance against the Buckeyes. He got knocked out of the game. And with Julian, I want to compliment you on another great point before, which is the Max Clare thing. The fact that he's got his check down is the best tight end maybe to ever play at Ohio State. I mean, what a blessing. What a blessing to have that when you've got so many good wide receivers, but then you've got an elite, like the best first team All American tight end to throw to. I mean, it's crazy, and we saw a glimpse of it in the spring game. You saw how Julian Sand was spinning it. I know that's not Texas. I know that's the spring game and everything, but Julian Sands, he's him. He's that kid. He's got it, whatever it is. I've seen it a million times with these Southern California quarterbacks. Those guys that can just step up and spin it. And Julian's one of those guys. He's one of the best I've ever seen that could throw it in high school. I think he's going to be great. And I think he's going to. I've said it before. I think he'll outperform Arch Manning in the horseshoe in first game of the season. I absolutely believe that.
Well, yeah, and like honestly, is he, from a recruiting ratings perspective, I know Quinn Ewers was the highest rated quarterback we've ever gotten because he was and Terrell Pryor obviously as well, like the perfect number one overall in his class type kid. But outside of those two, I mean, Julian's got to be the highest rated quarterback we've had start a game here in a while. I'm just going back through my head and I'm thinking about. I mean, I'm sure he was rated ahead of Kyle McCord. He obviously Will Howard wasn't a huge recruit 'cause he went to K State. CJ Stroud was, he was our second quarterback in that class. I mean, this is I mean, Justin Fields up there. I don't know if he was a 5-star, but I mean, Julian Sagan was a 5-star by every service, I believe, and he's going to be as highly rated as we've had, and he's had a year to sit, and again, he had as good of a role model as you could ever have with Will Howard. Like I said with the transfer portal, man. It's like people always talk about finding talented players, obviously to play and produce, Caleb Downs and those types of guys. But, you also can install leadership where there might be a void in leadership. That's the thing about Will Howard. Like Will Howard was without a doubt the leader of the team last year. And he was a guy that had, over 40 starts and did great work at Kansas State and came over and owned a veteran team and became like the de facto leader and emotional leader. And again, your quarterback has to be that guy. Like I've never seen a great team where it's like, it wasn't Brady or Mahomes or Joe Montana or whatever. Like every great team has a quarterback that's driving the ship and he has to be that guy. And Will Howard was that guy. And again, that's something that Julian's got to grow into. But I think that, the more I think about like the benefits of the portal, I think about, when I talk to people in the Woody, they talk about, Max Clare's impact on Jelani Thurman, trying to teach Jelani how to be a pro. Again, these guys aren't pros yet, and obviously they get paid a little bit, but, how to act like a mature, soon to be high NFL draft pick. It's like Caleb Downs is like every one of these safeties needs to mimic everything he does because he's perfect when in terms of, production, how he works, how he studies, how he takes care of himself, what he does on his off days. Again, that's like the benefit to having guys like that. And again, for Julian to be around Will Howard is going to be something where all he's going to do is mimic Will. And he's probably more talented than Will, even though I think Will's, a better player, obviously as a 5th-year guy than Julian probably as a 2nd-year guy. But wouldn't surprise me if he puts up similar numbers. He's not going to run like Will. I mean, Will's a wild bucking Bronco running the ball, but he can certainly throw it. He got a howitzer of an arm. And again, I talk to kids on the team and they say the absolute cannon of an arm. So don't let the little stature fool you. Again, I keep saying he's like Aaron Rodgers, where Aaron Rodgers, when you see him walking around, doesn't look like much, but when you put the ball in his hand, he's one of the probably top 5 quarterbacks in the history of football, in my opinion. And especially in terms of throwing the ball, certainly one of the top 5. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Julian's got all the he's got all the attributes. He's a big timer, and he's not going to the moment's not going to be too big for him. He's a cocky kid. I mean, he's a cocky, very confident young man. And that's what you want to see out of your quarterback. That's what, frankly, that Ryan Day was looking for, a little bit more swagger. If they had one criticism of Julian saying last year was that he might have been a little bit too laid back, get a little bit of that California surfer kid in him. And I think now what you're seeing is that Aaron Rodgers swagger, that Aaron Rodgers confidence, kind of emerging from Julian, as he knows, he's the head of the team. Will Howard's gone, not walking back through that door again. So it's his team, and he's got to lead it, and he'll do it, and he's going to do a great job of doing it. And no, he's not the runner that Will Howard is, but I'm telling you, he can run. I've seen him run in high school. He's an opportunistic runner. He's a Patrick Mahomes type of runner, in that if it's there, he'll take it, and he's real smart about it, and knows how to get those 7-8 yards on third down, and get down and get out of trouble. So yeah, I can't wait to see what he can do. And like I said, with Max Clare, I love your point about Max Clare, because I just think we have not had a tight end like that
No.
in a very long time, maybe ever. And I can't wait to see what Brian Hartline and Ryan Day can do with that.
Yeah, I mean Max Clark could be a top 20 pick. I mean he's that good. And the crazy thing, he's only a redshirt sophomore. Like he's not. So he's a third year guy. This isn't like he's a senior. I mean he's got 3 years left, counting this year. So I mean I don't think he's going to see that last year. But I mean, like I said, I watched his tape versus Penn State, man, and I was like, this cat is real. And again, the whole genesis of Lathan Ransom telling Keenan Bailey that, hey, if that guy hits the portal, man, you need to go get him because he's a dog. I always tell you guys, if you want to be real smart, talk to the players, because the players know who the players are. You can't fool the players. You might fool the coaches or the player personnel guy or the GM or some little pencil neck that's ever played. But like when a player is going against somebody, you'll say right away that guy is real, that guy is fake, and that's the fun part about talking to players and having been a player is that I when I was a coach, man, the first thing I'd ask is who's hard to go against, how are your matchups, who's good in practice, and sometimes the answers they're not all surprising, but they can be at times. Another super chat, Nevada. Mark Bundy, thanks for the deuce. Thanks for being Ultra Members. He says, to be a fly on the wall this week. Nevada OH. Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. I mean, I told you my guy who talked to the guy he's on the committee. It's whew, and I mean they're tight lipped, but man, it's whew, it's not gonna be fun. Not gonna be fun to be Michigan. It's gonna be fun to be us though, because it is Hammer Week. Nevada, your thoughts to be a fly on the wall this week? Can you imagine? I mean, you want to talk about something that'd be a great public hearing. I mean, this would make the Diddy trial look like nothing.
Yeah, no, this would be great. It's I think having the little bit of the veneer of mystery that's kind of surrounding this is, it's kind of making for fun. It's making for good drama. I think if all the facts were known and people could see it, there wouldn't be much drama, because it would just be so patently obvious that Michigan's guilty, that they're going to get the harshest type of possibility of a penalty. But now, they can kind of entertain these little fantasies that they're going to have some Perry Mason defense where he's going to leap up there and say, I know Connor Stallions did it 8 times, but the other 51 times it was by friends and family, and that that's a circumvention of the rule, and the rules don't say you can't pay other people to do it. And um, but that is their defense. As ludicrous as that sounds, if you were a fly on the wall, that's what you'd be hearing at the hearing, is that if you pay people to do it, and you use third parties, that gets you around NCAA rules. That is the Michigan defense. Um, I just don't have words.
Well, yeah, like I bought my mom tickets to the big Illinois Rutgers game or the big Illinois Michigan State game. I bought tickets for I bought tickets for my mom to go. Hey, mom, you want to go to the Illinois, Purdue game? Oh yeah, son, that'd be amazing. Like I've never bought it.
Oh, and
I've never.
and by the way, could you hold up the camera for 3 hours?
Like
Can you record those signals?
this.
That's convenient. That's,
Like I mean, how
oh
much would they have to
no.
pay? How much would they have to pay you to go to like the Ohio State Penn State game and sit in a low row and literally hold your phone like this for the
No,
entire
no,
time and then stop
Kirk,
it
Kirk,
and then the next
Kirk,
flight like
Kirk,
this?
Kirk, I've had kids play sports. All my kids play sports, And my wife will ask me, "Hey, can you film them doing this particular thing, like film them running or film them playing?" And I get tired in like the 60 seconds that it takes to film that, and I won't do it. I refuse to do it. And so it's like the idea of doing it for 3 hours. There's no amount of money that you could pay me that would be worth doing that for 3 hours. That would be absolutely miserable. And if that was your Mother's Day gift to old mom up in Canton, you're falling down the inheritance list.
The,
The Burt Carton kids they're not getting anything from grandma at that point in time. So
trust me,
everything
with my mom,
everything's going to your
I,
everything's going to your sister.
I'm not with my mom. I'm not gonna get an inheritance. I'm gonna get a bill. I'll bet you on that one. So I'm gonna get I'm gonna get an
And
invoice.
trust me, I know.
Oh,
Trust me, I know.
I
Oh,
know you
boy.
do. It's
Yeah.
not always
Uh,
fun. But I
uh,
all right, let's wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts as we head off into the night?
no, it is Hammer Week here on the Scoop, so it's
It's
nonstop.
hammer week, baby. I love it.
Hammer Week, and so all Hammer all week on the Scoop. So if you wait for the latest Hammer news, we will have it for you here on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're gonna go Hammer nonstop on Michigan all week long. So thanks for being here, and if you like other stuff, come join us on BuckeyeScoop.com because we have fun the other 23 hours a day that we're not here. But in
Uh,
the meantime, Hammer Week on the Scoop.
Yeah, the site is insane today. So if you guys aren't on our message board, man, the message board, it's like a frat party that just talks about Ohio State football. I mean, it's incredible. It's just the energy of Hammer Week has been very palpable, and we're really excited about it. So as always, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Please give us a follow on Apple Podcasts. Again, growing that format rapidly. You guys have been a huge help. So thank you for that. Those of you guys have done that, leave us a 5-star review. Send it to your friends. Super easy to do. And something that we just really appreciate. So as always, thank you so much for all that you guys do for this channel. It's Hammer Week, baby. And we're here as we march into this hearing, which is going to be absolutely amazing. We'll have full coverage of. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow night, 7:10. Be ready to roll. Go Bucks.